Hey, hello, and welcome to the Whole Loaf. Actually, today is a very, very special episode of the Whole Loaf. I'm not really sure why it's special, but we're going to get you ready, okay, for Valentine's Day. You can tell everybody's dressed in red except for me because I don't have anything red. I don't know. So let me ask you real simple. Why didn't the skeleton want to send any Valentine's Day cards? Anybody know?
No.
His heart wasn't in it. Anyway, my name is Paul Bertzloff. I am here with my wife, Suzanne, and with Debra Murray. Debra is author of 17 different cookbooks and food stylist to the stars, and we are going to get you ready for Valentine's Day. Yeah, you want some Valentine's Day trivia?
Yeah.
Does anybody know when and where Valentine's Day started? Okay,
Yeah.
I mean, it actually started off as Saint Valentine's Day, and tradition has it that there were 3 different individuals named Valentine, or a derivative thereof, Valentinius or whatever, but 3 different individuals that were martyred because of what they believed. It goes all the way back to the 3rd century. And the first one talks about a young priest, a young Roman Catholic priest, who when Claudius, the emperor of Rome, he determined that soldiers that were not married made better soldiers because they were not worried about what was taking place at home, right? And so he decreed that Roman soldiers could no longer be married. Well, this young priest, Valentine, he continued to perform marriages of the Roman soldiers. And he was actually put to death because he defied the emperor's orders. All right? But he was marrying people in the name of love. All right? And there was another one, Valentine, who tradition has it, he was trying to help Roman prisoners. Okay, Roman prisons were infamous for being, mistreating the prisoners, right? For torture, mistreatment. And so he was trying to help the Roman prisoners. Well, because of that, he himself was thrown into prison once again by Emperor Claudius. And tradition has it that he fell in love with a young lady, possibly the jailer's daughter. And he wrote her a letter from from her Valentine, right? His name was Valentine. Hence the very first Valentine's card. So happy Valentine's Day. We want you to get ready for Valentine's. It's that holiday that's all around love and affection. And chocolate. Yep, I don't know where chocolate came in, but it was Pope Gaius I in AD 496. So it goes all the way back to 496 that Valentine's Day was declared, and we've kind of added things to it over the years, i.e. chocolate. I don't think the Pope had anything to do with the chocolate, aspect of it. But guys especially, men, if you are out there and you're watching this, take it from me. Do not skip Valentine's Day. All right?
No.
Do not skip Valentine's Day.
Do not skip.
We were dating. Okay, we've been married for how long?
I'm still a little upset over
We've been married for 28 years, going on 29 years.
Yes.
And back when we were dating, I was in California, she was in St. Louis, Missouri, and I skipped Valentine's Day. I don't know what I was, obviously I wasn't thinking, right? But I actually skipped
intentionally.
Valentine's Day. And no, I don't think it was intentionally. It was just one of those where I didn't declare, I didn't think it was a big deal. And I had some miscalculations going in there because it obviously was a bigger deal than what I thought it was.
It was. And I think that people get their expectations of where they think it should be, and when it doesn't come in at that, you get hurt.
Or, like in my situation, I told you what Martin did on our very first Valentine's Day. He decided that instead of chocolates or some nice little card, he got me a thigh mask.
He got you a thigh mask, like one of those exercise?
It was red and it looked like a heart. And he thought, and honey, I'm sure you want to just get that nice little beach body back. Because I just had a baby. So needless to say, some people should forget about Valentine's Day.
We want you to do Valentine's Day appropriately and properly, right? Because, the truth is, all of us have broken relationships. All of us have messed up at times. All of us have built walls that have caused separation, or isolation in relationships, right? And Jesus, it was in Matthew chapter 5, verse 7. Okay, that greatest sermon of all, the Sermon on the Mount, where Jesus said, "Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy." And mercy is simply giving someone what they need, not what they deserve. Okay, mercy is showing love, showing compassion to someone. And in this case, forgiving someone, even when they may not deserve forgiveness. All right, and so we want to talk to you about the relationship choice. Because all of us, we have a choice, right? And so we want to encourage you to evaluate all of your relationships. right? I mean, whether it's with a child or a grandchild or a loved one, a spouse or a significant other, to evaluate your relationships and to offer forgiveness to those who've hurt you, those who've caused you offense. But also, we want to challenge you and encourage you to make amends for the harm that you've done to others. All right? And so, and so often, we don't even recognize that we've caused offense, right? Or that somebody doesn't recognize the fact that they caused you offense.
Right.
Okay, and so we want you to evaluate all of your relationships, offer forgiveness to those who've hurt you, but also ask for forgiveness for the hurt that you cause others. Because the truth is, in all honesty, we just don't love well.
No,
we live in a broken world, a sinful world, right? And we just do not love well. Sometimes it's consciously, sometimes it's unconsciously. We just mess it up. All right, so tonight we are going to do some different fondues for you. And fondue, Deb was telling me, is really kind of, it goes all the way back to, you're dipping bread together, right? You're cooking together, you're eating together. It's kind of a communal eating. All right, it's not like when you go to, when you go to a local restaurant, you order a meal and you just start sitting there and eating. Fondue, as you cook it, you get to fellowship with each other, you get to talk with each other, you get to engage with each other.
Participate in the cooking process too.
Yeah.
And you have no one to blame but yourself if it's not cooked properly.
Yeah, that's right. So you can't blame the cook, right? So,
Exactly.
That's true.
yeah, and so there's a lot of benefits to fondue, right? So it's a time that you're showing that connection to each other. You're cooking together. You're engaging with each other. And so fondue had its origins in Switzerland.
In Switzerland, that's
Okay.
right.
Yeah.
And I think it was, what I was reading about it was, what would happen is they would, obviously the cheese was something they had quite a bit of, but they would use the bread, the leftover bread. That was one of the methods by making the
Also,
cheese
use old
sauce.
bread.
Use
Okay.
the old bread.
Use the
It
old
was
bread.
the cheese with some alcohol or wine that they'd heat and then put the old crusted bread in there.
Oh, really?
So that's
Okay,
where the
very good.
tradition started. But I remember reading many years ago when I was selling a fondue machine on television, I saw an article about like the Knights of the Round Table. They would actually participate in peacetime. They would, by putting your fork into the pot with other people at the table, meant that you were in peacetime. If
Okay.
you did not put your fork in, then you were obviously not at peace with someone. So it was like a peace offering.
Oh,
so to
very
speak.
good. I did not know that. It's really kind of interesting because Switzerland is where it developed.
Right.
I was in Switzerland a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago. I was in Switzerland, and Switzerland is extremely expensive.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the food in Switzerland is extremely expensive. Like we would eat out of the grocery store and make spaghetti at night, and the other one was we eat off the street, sandwiches and that kind of stuff from the street vendors. And I had a buddy who took his family to Switzerland, and they sat down for some fondue in Switzerland, and the bill was like $400.
Oh my goodness.
And my buddy's like, it's cheese! It's cheese! It's $400 for melted cheese. Anyway, so what are you making over here? Speaking of melted cheese.
That's with cheese. So this would be more of an appetizer. So since it's Valentine's Day, it would be just for the two of you. And it's a great way that you can just sit here and make cheese together and fondue.
Making cheese together.
Making cheese together. Basically, all this is cheddar cheese, Swiss cheese, little bit of wine, which you've seen me add a couple of times because you got to make sure the consistency is good. Also some garlic, Worcestershire sauce, and some dry mustard.
Worcestershire
Oh, yeah.
sauce.
It is
See, that's
almost
3
done.
times fast.
Yeah, Worcestershire.
And I gave things here that Paul likes to dip with. I like the apples. He likes the salami and the bread. So that's just what he loves.
Yeah. And so once again, it's just that time where you can spend time together, you can converse with each other, you can be engaged with each other. It was in Matthew chapter 18 that Simon Peter, okay, one of the disciples, like basically the number one disciple, right? He was at least one of the top 3. And Peter comes to Jesus and said, Jesus, how many times must I forgive someone who sins against me? 7 times? And so that's kind of interesting, that number 7. Because Jewish law had it that you forgave somebody 3 times. And so Peter, was trying to be very magnanimous there, wasn't he?
Right.
He doubled it, 6, plus he added 1 in for
Extra
good
one.
measure. It's like,
Super
I
generous.
thought he was feeling, super generous. I bet he was feeling pretty good about himself. Jesus, how many times should I forgive somebody? 7 times? And Jesus said, no, not just 7 times, but 70 times 7. And what Jesus was stating is, we need to continue to forgive somebody.
Right.
Basically a number of wholeness, a number of completeness, that there is no limit. We're just called to continually forgive. And then Jesus told a parable, and it's called the parable of the unmerciful servant. Just real quick, recap. King was taking account of his financial situation. And he was calling in people who owed him money. And one person came in who owed the king a large sum of money. He was unable to pay it. And normally what would take place, or you had the authority at that point to throw somebody in prison, right into debtor's prison. Well, this person begged and pleaded with the king not to throw him in prison. The king looked upon him with mercy, forgave him his debt, and allowed him to return to his family. But it's like as soon as he left the king's presence, he went and he found somebody who owed him just a small sum of money. And it says, the scripture says, he grabbed him, he shook him, and he demanded to be paid. And when the other person couldn't pay him, he had him thrown into debtor's prison. And so when some of the other servants saw this, they were disheartened, and they went back and they told the king exactly what happened. The king summoned that servant back in and said, what is this you've done? I have forgiven you so much. And you in turn, you were not forgiving. You were not showing mercy to other people as well. And so he had that servant thrown into prison, and the scripture says he was tortured. He was tortured. I sit back and I think, that jumps out at me. Okay, because, we create our own torture at times, don't we? Okay, when we don't forgive someone, okay, when we hold on to a grudge, when we hold on to a hurt or a pain that somebody caused us, it's like we're torturing ourselves. Some of the saddest people I know, I don't know about you guys, but some of the saddest people I know are those people that are unable to forgive. That unforgiveness, that bitterness, that resentment that they just kind of hold on into their heart. It's like a bed sore. It just kind of continually eats away at their healthy relationships. Disease. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. And so I want to challenge and encourage you, stop stabbing yourself with the pain of those that you can't or that you will not forgive. All right? And so what is forgiveness? Forgiveness is not forgetting. Okay? Forgiveness, doesn't mean not forgetting. I think a lot of people misunderstand that. Forgiveness is just not holding it against them. If someone hurts you, in all honesty, you're going to remember that. You're not going to forget that. I think the pain of that hurt will subside over time, but forgiveness is making a conscious decision not to hold it against them. Okay, and so stop stabbing yourself with the pain of those that you can't or you won't forgive. C.S. Lewis, who's a Christian author, famous Christian author, he said this: to be Christian means to forgive the inexcusable, because God has forgiven the inexcusable in you. And so we're called to forgive just as we have been forgiven. Just as that parable of the unmerciful servant. The servant was forgiven, and so we're called to forgive. Okay, I bet you're finding up all kinds of good stuff.
Hold on, this has been waiting.
I'm talking way too much.
Look at that.
So I've got cheddar, mozzarella.
No, cheddar and Swiss.
Cheddar and Swiss.
Wine.
Dipped in old bread.
That looks like it was hot.
No.
Delicious.
It was very good.
It's like a grilled cheese sandwich on the cheese on the outside.
Ooh,
Yum.
I like that.
I can taste the wine. There's like the Worcestershire sauce and the Worcestershire sauce and the wine in there as well. So very, very delicious.
Good.
See, I love fondue.
I do too.
I love fondue.
Look how
Very
much
good.
fun we're having.
Yeah.
I know.
Yes, we're having fun. Go ahead.
And now I'm going to start on dessert, and Deb, go ahead, take it away.
Well, what I'm doing right now is, even though I am doing the frying, and it's because I want to make sure they have supper tonight because I love them so much. What I'm doing is an oil fondue.
Okay.
In one of my cookbooks, I actually wrote a cookbook on woks, and there's an entire chapter in it on using your wok as a fondue pot.
Okay.
So I'm sustaining the oil at 350 degrees, and when I'm having a party, or maybe it's a significant loved one, maybe it's me, Navarre, and Tyler, but you prep all the food in advance. Try to make everything the same size. If you're going to marinate stuff, you would marinate it in advance. Then I have different coatings set up here that we can all choose from. This is tempura. This is chickpea pulp. I ground up chickpeas so we can, if you're doing something, if somebody's being keto, we have flour, or you can do the steak one like we did here. The steak, I just put it in directly, put a little sea salt on it. So this right here, try one of those. Those are
the tempura.
The tempura. That's tempura broccoli with a touch of the chickpea on it. Now, as I told you before, I know a lot of times when we talk about the show, we're talking about eating healthy. Well, you're going, Deb, you're frying. How healthy is that? Well, first of all, if you're going to frying at home with maintaining your temperature with clean oil is healthier than going out to restaurants. Trust me. Cleaning those fryers is a lot of work, and a lot of restaurants go way beyond what
I worked in restaurants
Yeah,
for
so
a
you
long
know,
time.
you don't shame them because
Exactly.
they often. So that's a good thing, but this could also be like, tell them about hot pot, so shabu shabu.
Oh,
Because that's
yeah.
the same principle, we do the same setup, only we'd be using hot stock
Yeah.
instead of the oil.
Which is a good time as well. I mean, so like
Yep.
to sit down with a loved one and cook in a
Yep.
hot pot, that's basically hot broth, right?
Right.
And you take your meat or your fish or whatever it is, you put it in the hot broth.
Vegetables.
Your vegetables, and it cooks in the broth as well. Oftentimes taking on some of the flavor of that broth. Yeah, so very delicious. So the chickpeas, is that something that you crushed yourself, or can you buy chickpeas?
You can
or
buy
crush
them in
it?
the grocery
Okay.
store like that. I started just buying the bags of dried chickpeas,
Yeah.
and I throw them in my Vitamix.
Okay.
Add a little spice into it, and it is protein. It has absolutely no gluten in it, and it gives you that really great crunch, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah, they were excellent. So the chickpeas, I've never had it before. So
Wait
the
till you
chickpea
try
was excellent. All right, so we're called to be merciful, right? Just as God has shown mercy to us, just as God has shown forgiveness to us. If you want to have strong, healthy relationships, forgiveness is key.
I agree.
It's kind of interesting because the University of Pennsylvania did all kinds of research on forgiveness, which I just think is hysterical, right? Because the University of Pennsylvania will say that, forgiveness is necessary for a relationship to be strong and healthy.
Right.
So they did the research some 2,000 years after Jesus said, forgive one another. And so anyway, but because the University of Pennsylvania said it, then, they write a research paper on it and everybody believes it. But anyway, so, we're called to forgive each other. And that basically means we don't hold a grudge. We don't hold it against them. And so how do you forgive, right? Because it's a conscious decision. I don't think it just happens. I think you've got to make a conscious decision to forgive somebody.
And how do you do it? I mean, like empathize with them, or what?
I mean, you can excuse their actions. You can excuse their.
Right.
How did you forgive Marty?
Yeah.
With that time master, right?
I know. I think that the number one thing I found with forgiveness is just understand this one principle: we're all doing the very best we can.
Yeah.
Like everyone had different upbringings, different manuals to how to be. So if we can release them from not being what we expect, that's how I forgave him for that one. I didn't make him wear the tie master.
You didn't make them.
Now this
Is this
is
for me?
strawberry with a banana, and this is just chocolate and peanut butter,
Yum!
because that's his favorite. So
Oh my God!
that is it.
That sounds delicious.
Yeah, you want one of those?
That sounds like a good idea.
And then we also have Rice Krispie treats, really good also.
That is so fun.
So, I know,
Yep.
we're gonna eat more.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think I need to sample
Yes.
that.
Yeah,
I've never had that.
definitely.
That
Absolutely.
sounds awesome.
I'll do one
The
for you.
banana with the chocolate and the peanut butter.
So,
We got strawberry?
Yeah.
I think one of the first things we do when we're trying to forgive somebody is, I think so. I think we recognize the fact that, we've all messed up, right?
Right.
That we've all done things to hurt people, to hurt ourselves. And so, we need to recognize that all of us have fallen short, okay? And all of us have done those hurtful things. Secondly, I think we have to have a grateful heart, all right? Be grateful. We're always so critical. Isn't that good? Isn't that good? Forgiveness is good too. I mean, but it's always we're always so focused on it. I know. They say food's a way to somebody's heart. Chocolate and peanut butter are a way to mine,
Yeah.
right there. Yeah.
Very, 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 very good.
So anyway, I think it's, we need to be grateful. Instead of always being critical, instead of always cutting somebody down or cutting a situation down, be thankful. Look for the good. Rewrite that script in your mind. Remember that you have been forgiven a lot, right? And just as we've been forgiven, we're called to forgive others. I think so often that, and at least in my life, I am like the biggest barrier in my relationships.
Why is that?
I mean, I think I am. Because not only do we hurt other people, even unintentionally,
Right.
but it's like we got to recognize that we need to forgive people. And I think sometimes we don't recognize it. It's kind of interesting. I just had a conversation with somebody who, and this just happened just the other day. Somebody hurt them, somebody caused them offense.
Right.
And this is like a year later, and yet they're still kind of holding on to it.
Harboring.
They're still harboring, they're still hurting from it. And they just saw each other in a social setting, and that tension is still there, even a year later, because they haven't just forgiven, right? They just kind of got to release it. So it begins with a grateful heart. Remember that you're forgiven, that you're loved, and put a positive construct on things. Don't look at the negative. I think you pray. I think you pray.
I think it's very important.
You pray for the other person. It's hard to hold anger to somebody who you're praying for. All right? So if you're struggling with something, pray for that individual. And remember, once again, if you've been forgiven, what are you going to say?
I was going to say the Holy Spirit, I think, starts to go to work on yourself.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
don't, because I've had some people before that I really had a hard time forgiving, even though I knew all that it was hurting me more than them.
Right.
But the Holy Spirit
Yeah.
does get in there and start just helping that boo-boo and helping you
You're right.
feel compassion and empathy and
You're right.
forgiveness.
Yeah. And so, I mean, if you want to set yourself free, you know, where the Spirit is, what? There's freedom, right?
Right.
Where the Spirit is, there's freedom from shame,
Peace.
there's freedom from that sin, there's peace.
Peace,
Exactly.
exactly.
There's peace. And where the Spirit is, there is life. And so, we got all kinds of good food here. I am so excited about this. You know, it's
Isn't it fun?
It is. It is.
I love
Are we
sharing.
going to do fondue on Valentine's night? Are we going to do? No, maybe not. Okay, very good.
I haven't got that far.
Yeah.
It's Sunday, it'll be after church.
It is not okay.
Yep.
That's very good. So hey, we're just so glad you joined us. Do we have anything else you want to share with us here?
I don't.
Because I am looking to, what is this right here?
Alright, so I just made a little hot sauce to go with the tempura. That's
Okay.
hot sauce with a little sweet chili.
Yeah.
We've got some tempura, the shrimp from Ecuador. Have you noticed how delicious and sweet those Ecuadorian shrimp? Have you tasted one yet?
Mm-mm.
They're delicious. Try this, Suzanne.
This is for the sweet
Yes,
sour
I've been
cream.
able to buy these in the store, and I'm sure anywhere in the country where you find them, they're beautiful and they're enormous and they're a great value. And I
Oh, yeah,
expect them
yeah.
to be terrible, and they're
They're
very, very
good. They're
delicious.
very good.
Very delicious.
I'm liking the sweet chili sauce
Isn't
too.
that fun? It goes great with
It's got some spice to it.
Yes.
It's got, yeah.
Little sweet, little
Uh-huh.
heat. And that's it. Just be sweet. Spend time with each other. And even if it's not your loved one. I mean, I've had shabu shabu or dinner parties with my girlfriends.
This is a Christian show. Shabu shabu.
You gotta tell me about the joke again. I got a lot of leverage on the mushroom this
The
week.
mushroom joint. Oh, I know. I think of Valentine's Day. I'm sorry, but I did fall in love with someone once.
Aw.
Okay, but she only knew 4 vowels. She didn't know I even existed. She didn't know I existed. You get it?
4
I'm sorry for
Oh,
that.
I really
Oh, I know. I'm so sorry.
It's
So-
not as good as the mushroom.
No.
Try a good one.
So what?
Skeleton was
Okay,
good.
yeah. Okay, so here's a good one. Okay, what did the paperclip say to the magnet?
I don't know.
I find you very attractive.
I like it. Now that's
I know,
cute.
It's bad.
That's a cute
It's
one.
bad.
Happy Valentine's
They're
Day.
hokey Valentine's jokes, okay?
Oh, they're
So
awesome.
anyway,
We love how
we
corny
just want
you
to
are.
thank you for joining us. You live love out there. Have a fantastic Valentine's Day, and God bless. See you real soon.